Hi, my name is Buzz and welcome to my new video. So this video is the third part of our character LCD series, and in this part we're going to talk about the switch of our character LCD. So this is the switch that we're going to use for our character LCD. It's based on a pretty simple concept that if you have a redstone repeater powering a block and you have another one looking through the block, you can output a signal. But if the block replaces with a transparent block, the signal will go down. The piston head is a transparent block, so we don't have any signal. And our switch, I used a glass block, and as you can see, glass blocks are transparent and they don't move any signal out of them. So we have some parts of our switch that they do another stuff, and I'm going to talk about them in this and why they are there in this thing. So you may say why we are not connecting the like we have an input here, and why do we have all of these things, and why we are not just using an observer line to connect to our repeater line here. So first of all, this uh, this circuit doesn't only do it isn't just for uh, another thing. It actually has a use for the turning on our redstone lamp. So as you can see, if we put a block here, it will update, then push all of these things forward and turn on our um, redstone lamps. But we don't have any redstone blocks or things like that here, and we actually have a pulse that is turning on a redstone lamps. So if you watch my last video, you will understand how this thing works. But it is a pretty interesting thing in Minecraft that you can turn a redstone lamp on with two blocks of observers facing each other and making this kind of pulse. So it has uses for things like that too. But the main reason that these things are here is that um, to kind of make uh, filter out the problems that will cause when you face two observers like this and you have a repeater in the middle. So when you have kind of the circle like this that we have here, is actually observer covering of a redstone repeater, and then you have an output, and you are like asking why do we are using this observer here, probably. So if you use that thing, you get two pulses in your output, and that's caused because you are turning on the repeater. It turns on for some time and then it turns off, so you get two pulses because observers work by the updates and it updates two times. And to like eliminate this problem, we have a circuit that is useful for a lot of things, and one of its uses is this thing, that this problem that we have here. So this circuit is a T flip-flop. This is a real-life circuit that you have in digital like um, board components or anything like that, and its use is to change the state of its output by a single pulse. So you can give it a single pulse by this button, and it will change the state of its output to on. And if you give this another pulse, it will change it to off. So it's changed the state of its output that we have here by a pulse, that is our button. In a simpler terms, it can turn a button to a lever, and that's pretty okay. It's used in that case too, in designing homes or things like that in Minecraft. So with the use of this circuit, we can eliminate this problem and use a repeater in the middle of two observers. And as you can see, we put a block here, we have two pulses here, but we have a single pulse that makes this snow powder dispenser dispense a block. And that's pretty important because um, the reason that we need a single pulse is that this switch can turn to a snow powder switch, actually the snow powder and dispenser switch, so you can use it with both um, redstone lamps, and then you can change it and use it with dispensers and powder snow by a very simple change that I will uh, tell you. So this thing can work with both um, redstone lamps and dispenser and powder snow with a very simple change. So let's just put this powder snow here and remove this block and show you the thing again. As you can see, we have two pulses and a single pulse in our output. And we can use our switch here, and as you can see, this thing is getting uh, like our um, like our circuit that we have here, the line of this thing. So, and if we use our switch, we can have inputs that change this thing, and let's put it in default state. And if we turn this circuit off, we can just do anything that we want here, but it won't affect our pixel. So how does this thing exactly work? We have a signal going through a piston that extends, and this piston moves an observer through this other piston, and that makes a one-tick pulse. And sticky pistons with a one-tick pulse leave out their blocks in like forward. And this thing is actually a T flip-flop. As you can see here, it's a T flip-flop but without a redstone block. And we are using it because it changes the state a single time by giving it a single pulse. So you give it a single pulse, it changes the state a single time. And that is what we need for our observers. A change of state, a single change of state mean a single pulse. And we need that so that we can convert this thing that has two changes of states, because it turns on and off, to a single one that can remove that removes the block in front of our observer and puts it back on with two signals. So they give it a single signal, it pushes the block forward. Another one, it gets it back. Back. So that's make it so that we can use repeaters in middle of our two observers, and that looks pretty similar to what we have there. And if we give it a change that I told you that is pretty simple, we can use it with redstone lamps. And that simple change is to use the observers instead of this grass blocks. And when you do that, and this thing changes the state, and it changes to the forward state, actually it will make that pulse that I told you and turn on our redstone lamps. As you can see, it's making a pulse. So we can change it by, like, it is the reason that I love it, because is that you can change the whole character LCD usage by just two fill commands, to just replace this layer with grass blocks, or then if you want to use redstone lamps with you can just replace grass blocks again with observers. And that's pretty neat, and you can just change everything with two or one or actually two commands, because these switches won't be lined up in front of each other. So for each line you need to do it do the command a time, but that is not important. That's actually pretty good to change all of these things with a single command. And I am using this thing actually because of that. So as you can see, I hope that you understand how all of these things work. So we have this problem that it makes two pulses. Um, the observer makes two pulses if we use a repeater in middle. Then we can fix this by T flip-flops that change their state by a single pulse, and we are using this T flip-flop in front of our repeater, so that each time that we give it a put a block or remove a block in front of our observer, it changes the state, and when we put it, it changes the state for a single time. It give it output, and the output will put a block here, and when we remove it, it will give another output, a single pulse output, and it will remove the block in front of our dispenser. And we can use it pretty good with our snow powder and dispenser displays, but I don't like using them because they are really buggy, and in my last video you can see a visual example why I'm not using these things, because they just break sometimes. And yeah, that was the thing that is happening here, and we can just change our T flip-flop a little bit and replace the block that is in front of the last piston with observer, so that they face each other when you put a block here actually, and then when you remove the block, they don't face each other, and you have your output turn off. So this is the exact thing that we have here, there, that we have there in our switch. As if you look at this thing, it's pretty similar. So let's look at this. If you would just put something here, the switch is turned on, and if you put input, the output will turn on, and the output will turn off. So these are just two exact circuits, and it is just a single line of our switch made here. But in our switch, we are not using pistons, a single pistons to actually change the like the state of our turn on or off our switch with single pistons. We are using a whole layer that moves upward and downward, and we split it in two parts, and we are just pushing all of them with each other. So here we get to our this circuit that we had there, and I showed you that can move all of these blocks downwards and then upwards to turn on and off our switch. So how does this thing exactly work? So let's start by here. As you can see, we have two parts of this pattern of grass blocks and then glass blocks. And why do we have this thing? Actually, when I was making the switch, I faced a problem that was it extended the push limit by a single block. I don't remember the exact push limit and the number, but I think the push limit is 12, and it extended it by one block, and it caused it to not work if we use one layer. So we need to split this thing in two parts so we can use it and it doesn't extend the push limit, the piston work, and nothing breaks. So that's why I split it in two parts, so that our piston can work. If we put all of these things into one piston, it won't push up our layer of dirt and glass. So, and here we have the wiring that turns on our pistons, and it is two lines of observers that are named down and up. So if you give this one a signal, it will push everything down, and it's its name down. So, and if you give the other one signal, if we push everything up, and it names up. So the way that this thing works is kind of simple. You have this line of you actually have two sets of pistons, the pistons that push down and the pistons that push up. So the line of our observers that name down connects the both pistons that push down together, and you give it a signal. The signal goes through here, turns on this piston, and then it will go through here and then turns on this piston. So it connects them both together and gives them a signal. And yeah, that's how they work. And you have another one here for the up signal, and it connects this piston, then it connects to this piston, it will turn on or off, and then we have the signal continue through this wire and go through this small circle here and get through the piston that we have here and turn it on and off. So it has some simple wiring, simple observer wiring, and you can move your blocks up and down, but you need to do it in a pattern. If you're so this thing actually makes the pattern, and if you want to push everything down, you put a single block in front of the down line, and you can put a single block in front of the up line to turn to push everything up. So you can just repeat this thing and move everything up and down. So this thing actually does that automatically, and you can control it by a single lever. And as you can see, it moves everything up, but it is up and it doesn't do anything. And it moves everything down. So you can just turn it on and off and move everything up and down. And the way that this thing works is pretty simple. You have a piston with a sticky piston with a resistance block, and it's facing two lines of T flip-flops, and it always turns on one of them. If you change the state of this thing, it will turn on this one. Another time, it will turn on this. So when you turn the thing off, it will activate this thing, this piston, this line of T flip-flop, and then it will get this block to itself and make a pulse through this observer line, and it will just move everything up. As you can see, everything is now up, and if we do it again, it will change everything to its down state. And you need to look at this and see that it is just exactly doing what I did with my hand, but automatically with pistons and with a single lever. As you can see, it has a pattern that how it pushes the blocks on in front of the observers and then gets them back, and it moves everything up and down. So you may ask that why I am not using this line of pistons here, and why I am using T flip-flop in this situation. So if you look at these pistons, you will notice that they both cause an update. If we put them in front of our observers, they both change when we move our lever. One extends back and one extends forward. So that was a problem, because if we use this thing here, it will cause a pulse in both of these lines at the same time. And if I flick this lever, this redstone line will turn on and it will make a signal exactly at the same time in both of these lines. And you need to look at this carefully. And as you can see, everything moves down, and everything very fastly moves up, because we have this signal. It has a really small delay, and it just repeats itself and does nothing. So if we use this thing and we don't use our T flip-flops, we would see a problem in this case, and if we just make everything uh, go downward and then upward at the same time and do actually nothing. So if I remove this thing, and if you look at our T flip-flops output, it's just sends a single pulse, so it doesn't break anything, and each of them sends a single pulse at the one time. They don't do it at the same time. One activates first when you flip the lever, then when you flip the lever another time, the other one activates. So it doesn't make everything active. It doesn't make send a pulse to all of these things at the same time. So yeah, that was it. We have the pushing mechanism, and in our switch we have it arranged like this. You have a line of observers going here, and they are connected to all of the pistons, so they will activate all of them at the same time. As you can see, if I do fast, all of them activate. And in here we have the circuit built a little bit differently. The last pistons of our T flip-flops they are facing down. It's because they save a little bit of a space, and they give us a free hand to connect these lines of observers to another things. So yeah, that's how this part of our switch works. And if you watch this video very carefully, you will see a problem. And the problem is this. I mentioned here that if you um, give this observer block, if this thing will turn on and off, so it will make two pulses, and as you can see, it makes two pulses. It is true, but the thing is that it is doing it because the delay in this repeater is high. If we change the delay down, it just makes a single pulse, so we don't need our T flip-flops and the stuff like that. We can just connect our this line of our pistons to this line of our repeaters. I don't know why didn't I thought about this, but I built the character 2D with this circuit in it, and it works pretty and it's pretty reliable. It doesn't have a lot of problems adding these things here, but it reduces the speed. And as you can see, let me turn this uh, repeaters delay down and turn the switch on, and if I put a block here, this piston will just push out this block, and as you can see, push out this block, so it means that this sticky piston is receiving a one tick pulse. A sticky piston only do this when they receive a one tick pulse, so we don't need anything, we don't need this thing here. This thing here just makes a one tick pulse, so we just don't need this. We can connect this line to this thing. It will have all of the benefits that I told you, because we can just replace this layer, but this layer will be here, and it makes everything easier and simpler. So I am not doing it now for our character study because it just works. It's a first version of it, and it's pretty hard to change all of it. So I may do a speeding up video for our character study because it has a lot, and I mean a lot of bad features. They work very good, and but they add a lot and massive delay to our character study, and this thing is one of them. They make it harder, and if it breaks, you can't just fix it. So yeah, that was the problem that this thing has, and I am not fixing it for now, but maybe at a future part I will do it. I hope that this video didn't get very complicated. You understand how these things work. And if you didn't, I highly suggest that you download this Word. The Word download will be, as always, in the description. And play around with this. Play around with the T flip-flops. How do they work? with the delays in the switch and everything else that we have here, just experience with everything that you can experience within this world, and yeah, um, go around and test everything. So thanks for watching. I think this video is ended. I hope you got everything clearly, and goodbye.